After playing around with my Caran D'Ache 15 dry gouache pan set, I enjoy playing with gouache so much that I wanted to continue my exploration of gouache as a medium. But I prefer to buy things on a student grade entry level when I'm trying to explore and just decide if I'm into something or not. So rather than buying a pro set, I decided to go with this Meeden 48 gouache paint set. It's my first time ever using gouache in the tubes versus the dry gouache in the pans. So I bought these back in March and I was able to unbox them, but I wasn't able to use them for quite some time because I had renovations. So here's me just flipping through the box and getting my first impressions of the packaging for the first time. And then I end up putting this away and pulling it out to do sort of a swatch play session so that I can try to learn about it before I get into doing some actual artwork with it. So here I am all set up. I already put some grids down on my Prism sketchbook that I have been using. It's very similar to the Royal Talons sketchbook, and I do actually quite like it for gouache. And I start by exploring, like, can I use this straight out of the tube? And I very quickly discovered that the answer is no. I didn't like using it right out of the tube. I had watched somebody else swatch this set, and they just did it straight out of the tube, but I found it kind of clumpy, like a little dry, I guess. And this might not be the right word, but I just couldn't get the right amount of the right consistency. I think that what I quickly discovered was it's better if you put it down into the pan and the water that is in your brush will naturally make it a little bit looser and more of that consistency that you want. Straight out of the tube like that without working it, even just heating it up a little bit by stirring it in the pan. It just needs a little extra work. Otherwise, I find it's hard to stretch, and I think you would just use a ton out of product if you were to use it out of the pan like that. So here I've switched from a round brush to a flat brush. I'm using acrylic brushes because I tend to find that I like a little stiffer brush. I found that with at least the watercolor brushes that I have, gouache kind of gets stuck upwards in the bristles. And I started using a pan, like a palette, just like a regular palette that I would use for watercolor or anything. It's a ceramic palette. And I started mixing it there, and I didn't have to add extra water to it, and I didn't add white to it. With the Caran D'Ache palette, it's best when you mix the white in with it. With this one, I didn't really feel like I needed to do that extra step if I didn't want to, although I do understand from watching other people who actually know how to use gouache that you do typically use a lot of white, regardless of what format your gouache is coming in. So I'm using it I'm going from the tube onto a pan. The pan is off screen, or the palette is off screen a little bit here, and I apologize for that. And then I'm just going through and I'm making my swatches. So here I am just jumping ahead towards the end of the first 24. So the first half of the Meeden gouache that I have been swatching here. And I haven't really run into any troubles or issues. Basically, I did run into one color, I think it was grass green, that the lid was slightly ajar, and it was a bit drier than the rest, but otherwise everything was fine. And I thought the consistency was smooth. Once I figured out that I had to put it in a palette first, it was a lot smoother, a lot easier for me to use, and I could stretch it a lot further. So I like them. The colors are really vibrant. I did not test to see how well they go over black. I would expect them to not be perfect over black, and that's fine. But the colors look really good. And here you can see me scratching to see if they come off. The top ones are already dry, and there's some that are already dry on my palette as well. So I tested them out by just seeing how easy they were to re-wet. And they were pretty easy to re-wet, but when I used them on the paper there, they had a closer of a consistency of a watercolor. So that was just something to note. But that was probably the way I re-wet them. I didn't mix them in with any additional color, and maybe I had too much. There wasn't enough product to be like a thicker when I reread it. So that could be a me thing. So then I put it down and I left for a day, and then I came back, and I'm doing the other half. And so everything's completely dry on the first half that I've done. And I was able to go back a second time and do the second half of my swatches. And I didn't run into any issues or anything like that. Everything worked as expected. I wasn't exactly expecting miracles, but um, like I said before, the only big difference between this and my Caran D'Ache was that I don't feel the need to mix white in it as much. I didn't mention earlier, and I probably should have, that I didn't find the white to be very strong. So I don't think it would go over black very well, but it would probably mix in reasonably well. So I did really enjoy the colors, and eventually we'll get to one, and I'll show the swatches towards the end of where there's like some beautiful pinks and just some really lovely colors. My initial impression of this is that if you're interested in those Himi jelly gouache palettes, but a little put off by the fact that a lot of the reviews talk about how they mold, but you want convenience colors, this might be a really fun option. I bought this set on sale. I'm looking at the Amazon right now, and it's $29.95 for the full price for 48 Canadian. And I bought it on sale when it was about $24.95, so $25. And I thought that was a really great price for just a whole bunch of convenience colors to play around and experiment and decide if this is the medium for me. So I really love the colors, and the second half, the colors are just completely up my alley, and I really enjoy them. So I'm going to speed up a little bit more and show towards the end here, and then move on to the next thing I did. So it was right about here where I stumbled upon the color that is called, let me check here, Peach Blossom. And it's this really like beautiful, bold pink. And my camera isn't picking it up well enough, but it reminds me of opera pink or opera rose, I think, in watercolor. And it's just really fun. And as I get through the second half of this, I really feel like this set, the colors that are in the set lean well to florals. So if you love painting florals, you might enjoy the color selection that's here. It's really quite beautiful, and I'm really pleased with all the colors that I have that are available. So I'm going to wrap this part up, and then the next thing that I tried to do is I tried to take the primaries and mix them to see how well the set mix. So that's coming up next. And before I jump to the next section, though, I wanted to show off the completed swatches. So here I am wrapping that up. I try again to re-wet something just to see if I can do a better job this time, and I fail. but here you can see that the colors are gorgeous. I like I said, I think that they're wonderful for doing florals and sort of nature type landscapes, lots of greens, blues, and beautiful floral type colors. So I'm going to wrap this up and then move on to some color mixing. So I have been studying color theory, and I'm actively trying to learn how to mix colors so that I don't need to buy all these convenient colors all the time. Ironic, I know, since I bought a huge set of convenient gouache. But one of the tests I wanted to do was to see how mixable it is. And I thought, since I'm using the Caran D'Ache palette to explore color theory, and I know how cleanly it mixes colors, I would compare the Meeden gouache to it. And it would give me a sense of if I can mix colors, mix and match, and just like how pure it is. The Meeden set comes with what do they call this? Archival ratings, and it seems to identify also pigments, but I don't know anything about that part. So I'm just going off of my understanding of mixing of colors and what I would expect to see. So in Caran D'Ache, the primary color palette is yellow, ultramarine, carmine lake. That's your primaries. In Caran D'Ache, for your modern primary palette, it's magenta, lemon yellow, and cyan. So for the Meeden, what I did was I identified what I thought, based on the colors that I could see, would represent their modern color palette and a traditional color palette. So for Meeden's traditional color palette, I chose the color scarlet, pale yellow, and ultramarine. And I'm going to be comparing that to the Caran D'Ache yellow, ultramarine, and carmine lake. So I swatched them side by side so that I could just see how closely they'd look. And they're pretty good. Immediately, I noticed that Meeden's a little thicker and a little milkier. And I think that's because you use less water to mix up the Meeden gouache. And the Caran D'Ache gouache needs to be activated because it's a dry gouache. So there's definitely a slight consistency difference. And I think that is the difference between a dry gouache versus a gouache that comes in, a more traditional gouache that comes in the tube. You can also see here, as I put down the yellow versus the pale yellow in the Meeden, that there's a slight brightness difference. So maybe I should have chose a different color for the Meeden, but it actually didn't impact my mixing at all. So that was really fun and interesting to compare. So the next thing I'm going to do is just going to mix an orange, a violet, and a green with them, just to see how well they mix. And I'm going to compare them each side by side to see how close they get together. And I'm very surprised that they match. They match really well. So the results are the Caran D'Ache orange, purple, and green that I mix is very similar to the Meeden's orange, purple, and green. Again, the only difference is that the Meeden seems to be a little thicker, maybe a little milkier, if you will. And again, I think that's because of the format of the gouache. So it turns out that I find it to be very mixable as a result. So I'm going to speed this up and get on to the next section. Okay, so I'm all done with my traditional color palette or color wheel, and you can see how they mix and they look very, very similar. And now I'm just preparing my modern color palette. So now that I'm all done with the traditional color palette, I'm setting up my modern color palette. So in Caran D'Ache, it's magenta, lemon yellow, and cyan. And I selected in Meeden the rose, lemon yellow, and cerulean blue. And I'm swatching them out in their pure form like I did the previous one, so I can compare them side by side. I did find that the cerulean blue and the cyan they were kind of different, but they both carried a similar undertone. And again, I found the Meeden to be a little bit milkier, especially the cerulean blue as well. But what I found that was interesting was they still mixed very similarly. So even though the cerulean blue and the cyan were very different, when I started to mix them together to make my greens, my purple, and my oranges, the result was very similar. So I think that I can say that the Meeden, they mix very purely, similar to the Caran D'Ache in that way. So if you could definitely use these to mix whatever random colors that you would like, and they would work quite well. You have a lot of colors to play with. I was a little bit worried at first because some of the colors, like in particular the rose that I chose, I didn't know if this was a pure color or if it in itself was a mix. But it seemed to perform quite well, and I didn't have any issues. So I would be able to say that you could mix the colors in the Meeden gouache set, and the results would be as you would expect. So that's really what I was looking for here. I can't really speak to things like the light fastness or the pigments used because I don't really know enough about that, but I can say that I think they mix really, really nicely. And if you're interested in these and you feel pretty comfortable mixing, you might be able to get away with a set of 12 even, and they're very affordable. So that's really nice. The other thing is that because they have all these beautiful convenience colors, I think this set compares really well to like a Himi gouache kind of thing. You know, you get those big jelly gouaches and they're just full of convenience colors and beautiful colors that are just ready to go. If that's something that you're interested in, you might want to check out these Meeden 48 set because the colors are gorgeous, and I just love the mixability of it and the affordability of it. So jury's out for me on if I prefer the dry gouache set versus the tube set. That's still something I'm exploring and asking myself. And once I'm finished playing with these and just having fun with them, the next thing I'm going to ask myself is, do I want to invest in something like a Holbein, or is this enough for me? So I think it was a purchase well spent for me, the $25 for these 48 set, because it's going to allow me to have that time to play without making such a big investment. The Holbein gouache sets for me are something around $150 for 12. So it's just such a steep price. And at where I'm at in my own artistic journey, I just can't imagine that something I want to do right now, especially for gouache. I feel comfortable paying some pretty steep prices for watercolor because I know I love it and I understand better what I'm buying, but I'm still not there yet with gouache. So having these training wheels is great. I will also say that I found the Meeden set to dry pretty rapidly, which is good. I don't know how that compares to a professional set of gouache, but they re-wet reasonably well, and I haven't really had any issues with it. So I hope that this is helpful for you if you're exploring the Meeden gouache, and I'll be doing some more check-ins and updates as I use it to paint some pictures. So thank you so much for staying to the end of my video, and I hope that this was informative, and we'll check in with you soon.